everyone, and welcome to DEI After 5. I am so excited that you are here with us this week. This is a topic that we know we have not done, and we've done a lot of topics on this show. So, as I was preparing for today, one of the things that I thought about was, the work that we do crosses so many different industries. It is agnostic. But wanted to dive into one particular industry because I think it's so important. And as we get into it, you'll understand why it's so important right now during this time. So I want to welcome my guest, Calvin Stovall, who is the Chief Experience Officer for Iconic Presentations. And we're going to talk about hospitality. We're going to talk about hotels. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. So Calvin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sacha. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Wonderful. So for those who do not know who you are, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Wow. Okay, I'll try to make this as short as possible, okay? um, actually, I am the Chief Experience Officer of Iconic Presentations, and that is really, I focus on delivering dynamic keynote presentations for organizations on customer experience, primarily, talk and leadership. And so, I go around the country and talk to not only hospitality companies, I speak for healthcare management organizations as well as real estate management companies. Because as you know, customer experience transcends across any industry. So that's pretty much what I do. I'm also the director of executive programs for a leadership development organization based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, called the Advanced Leadership Institute. And we specialize in preparing particularly African Americans for C-suite positions, and of course their allies as well. And I do that. So I'm a remote employee. I live in Mooresville, North Carolina. So I go to Pittsburgh about once a month. We have a new cohort kicking off in February. So I'll be traveling back and forth to Pittsburgh quite a bit.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. So one of the things that you and I spoke about, in preparing for this was my producer, one is part of the Leon Thomas group, and Leon Thomas pulled us together based on the work that you're doing kind of in the hospitality space, specifically a book. So talk to us about this book and why is it important today?
Oh, wow. It's first of all, it is what I would call a labor of love. The book is called Hidden Hospitality, Untold Stories of Black Hotel, Motel, and Resort Owners from the Pioneer Days to the Civil Rights Era. It's a coffee table book, and it features Blacks in the industry that probably most people, even from the industry itself, have never even heard of. I just feel like it was critical to get these stories told. We know about the Marriotts, the Hiltons of the world, the Kimmons Wilsons of the world, but we don't know about a lot of the people that are in this book. So I felt it was really critical. There's little known about these people because there's little written about them. So I thought it was vital to get these stories out because most of the narrative around African Americans in hospitality is in servant roles, or service, service areas, serving in kitchen and housekeeping and so forth. These are people that in the book that are featured are people that built beautiful hotel spaces for Blacks. And I just felt it was very, very important to get these stories out there.
Yeah. When you and I connected, one of the things, it was just the timing of it was, just crazy because I had just seen a couple of posts on Instagram around some hotels or motels, I should say, not too far from where I live, that I had no idea were Black owned at one particular time. I want to say it was in the 30s and 40s, in Maryland. And what was interesting to me was this is literally a mile from my house, and I had no idea.
Wow.
And it just dawned on me, we're at a time right now in 2026 where so much of our history is being erased.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so much that people know, you're now starting to see being taken away, like
Mm-hmm.
it never happened. Um,
Sad.
which is odd to me because I'm like, okay, so you gonna gaslight us because we know it happened.
Exactly right.
We know it was there. There was a
Mhm.
whole sign that was there, and now you just because you take the sign away doesn't mean the history is gone.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
so when you were looking at this book and when you were researching for this, um, what was some of the things that like struck you the hardest in finding out some of these untold stories?
Yeah, yeah, Sasha. Yeah, that's a really great question, and let me tell you how this project even started, because I think the context of it all we'll kind of see how it led to where it is, where it happened today. So this book started in graduate school,
Mm,
probably 30 years ago. So I was in grad school at Cornell, and there was an organization started there called the National Society of Minority Hoteliers. It was a student-led, um, I would say, like a association or organization. It was particularly for people of color in the hospitality industry trying to move up. It was started by one of the gentlemen that I currently work with. His name is Evan Frazier, and he was one of the founders. And they were actually having a conference, and he asked me would I do some research on Black hotels from a historic perspective. Uh,
mm.
so it was interesting, and I was like, really? Why would I say, okay, let me look into this. So of course there wasn't a lot out there. I mean, I was looking at stuff on because I decided to do it. I thought it was a pretty interesting subject. So I was looking at stuff on microfiche, and I know your younger listeners wouldn't
No,
even know what
okay.
that is. so
I've
actually,
heard of it.
you heard of it? I know it kind of dates you a little bit when you use it, right? And so what ended up happening, I got so intrigued by the subject matter, I started. It became my monograph, a graduate monograph, which is it's not
Mm,
nearly as intense as a thesis, but it has to, it requires a lot of research to do it. So I put together like this 100-page document, got graduated, and so they give you a copy of it in a beautiful binder. It was in a black little binder with gold lettering on the front, and at the time it was called Hospitality Historiography. That was the
mm,
name of it. And so fast forward to like 2020, 2019, laid up in there, I was cleaning out some boxes and I found it. And I was like, wow. And there's a friend of mine there. And she was like, what's that you got? I was like, well, it's my monograph from years ago. And she was like, what is it about? I was like, it's Black hotel ownership. It starts in the late 1700s. It goes through civil rights era. She's like, what? And so she grabs the thing and she's going through it. And she's like, you can see her eyes like, she's like, I had no idea we owned hotels back then. And she looks up
mm.
at me and goes, is this a book? And that was how it started. I
Wow.
was like, wow. Okay, let me see. Let me see if I can do this. I called a few people, found a great publisher in Brown Books Publishing in Dallas. They jumped on it immediately. And the the whole process of it, I just felt like as I started going deeper and deeper into the research, the stories were so rich about these people. You got to think about the, the time and era of when this stuff was happening, probably one of the most challenging times in our history. And they were
Mm,
building 3, 4 story hotels because we couldn't stay in any white hotels
right.
downtown. I mean, you even performance, I don't care what your status was, you just couldn't do it.
Right.
So we had Black people that raised money because a lot of them were restaurateurs at first, and they took that money, bought a building, did a hotel. You had some areas where they all got Black businessmen together, got money, built a hotel because we needed safe spaces to stay, because there were sundown towns and other areas in the South where if you were out traveling as a Black person, you were out too late. I mean, it could mean death for you.
Yeah.
So we had to be, the whole Green Book, and I know the Green Book is in this book, but it is just a small portion of what I cover. Um, and Green Book was vital to our safety and travel, but I covered the Green Book went from 1936 to 66, I believe. But I start this book in the late 1700s, all the way past to like 68, 70, 1970.
Wow.
There's a whole lot in there that and that the Green Book it covered a lot of the hotels that are in there, but it's still not, the book spans a much wider scope of our impact in the industry.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest surprises, there's several in there. One of the biggest things that I realize is that we lost a lot of those fabulous hotels, and the generational wealth that was lost due to highways going through places like in which is now Overtown in Miami, that used to be called Color Town way back in the day. Then you had once the Civil Rights Act of 1964 kicked in, signed by President Lyndon Johnson, we were able to go anywhere to stay. And what ended up happening is we abandoned all of those Black properties that were keeping us. And so what ended up happening, of course they weren't going to be able to get a loan to refurbish the place. And so a lot of them went under. And so we lost so many hotels. Because the book, of course, I put them all in there because the book would have been like this tall, right?
Yeah.
But I've covered quite a few of them, and a lot of them are gone. Most of them are gone. They're in some, and the ones that are standing, which is a few, which like the Magnolia House in Greensboro, North Carolina, that's still there, but most of them are gone. And so I just think about, wow, could you imagine where we would be if those properties remained?
Yeah.
It would have been incredible. So but there's a last chapter in this book, because it's not all lost, because there's a last chapter in this book where I cover court hoteliers of today, like the Shep Johnsons of the world and so forth. So it does, most of the book is 90%, 95% is all history. And then that last chapter is current. So I wanted to tie both together so we can also look at where we are today. But today we still only own 2% of all the hotels out there.
And it's interesting. It's like, as I'm listening to you, a couple of things have gone through my head where the Green Book in particular, there was a resurgence of the Green Book recently.
Yes.
And even now, more than ever, there are other cultures within the United States that are looking at how do we create something similar to the Green Book for us, right? Where LGBTQ plus communities, or especially like the Hispanic Latino communities right now, who are feeling like they are being attacked or there are no safe spaces, which is all by design. But the blueprint for this was the Green Book, right? Again, 1933, and creating this list of, these are safe spaces, these are places that have been vetted to and are prepared for you to be there.
Yes.
And so, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, actually, I think Victor Hugo Green, who created the Green Book, I think he got the model from the Jewish community. They had one too, but of course Victor took it a whole nother level, and the way he got, he just did such a fabulous job getting it done, because he was a postman and he knew all these and he knew all of these postmen, so they would
get it out,
and then he had them in Esso gas stations, which is now Exxon, but I think him and his wife Alma, they were just brilliant in how they put that stuff together. And it was just, that was our Bible. And, we had people using their homes as guest houses as well. We had the first Airbnbs. That's what I always say. We started the whole thing. So, but the hotels and things, he put hotels in there, motels in there, restaurants, beauty salons, grocery stores. It's just fascinating. And a lot of people didn't even know that book existed until, when did that movie Green Book come out? 2018 or something like that?
Right. They didn't even know it was a thing.
No, not even our people.
Right.
You know, unless they lived in that era or really did some history or, did some research on it. Most of us didn't know what it was. And of course, to the white community, it was all new.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that Green Book because it did pique people's interest. What the heck is a Green Book? But I for most people, I think that was a new thing for them to learn. Yeah.
Yeah. And it also makes me think of cities or towns that, as you said, were destroyed, that had hotels and motels and banks and everything
Yes.
supporting the community.
Yes.
Just this morning, I was seeing that there's a movie called Central Park
Mm-hmm.
that talks about Seneca. Was it Seneca Falls? I think no, that wasn't called Seneca. It was Seneca something, but it was a Black community that was destroyed to create Central Park in New York.
Yep.
And again, hotels, restaurants, banks, schools, everything, that was there to create a park for a particular element of society. Right.
Yep.
So you have that. You have, and I'm in the DC area, where the Pentagon is right now was a Black community. That was destroyed to create the Pentagon. And there's so many others. There's, oh gosh, is it Lake Lanier in Georgia?
Yeah.
A Black town that was flooded, right? And most people only know Tulsa.
That's it. And that's why this book I cover, I don't, I go deep where I told you like Overtown in Miami, which was Colored Town. That was one area you had. I mean, you mentioned DC. Was it Black Broadway?
Oh yeah,
Black Broadway. We had Black Bottom in Detroit. I mean, we can go on. We can go on and on with that in Richmond. But there was another one in Richmond, Virginia. Yep. I just flourishing neighborhoods where our dollars are just circulated just in that area. I can't remember the number, so please don't quote me on this, but I think it was in Tulsa. They said a dollar spent in that community would turn 15 times or so before it left. Yeah. When you think about that, and like you said, they would get highways would come through there, or they would just get destroyed. And in some cases, sadly, in a lot of these hotels were like the cultural hub for a particular area. So when that went away, it just, just goes. So it's a very inspiring book, Sacha. It truly is. I love it because, first of all, it's going to open people's eyes to a space where we traditionally had a different narrative. But it also lets people know that, hey, if they could do something like this and build such a wonderful property during that time, I should be able to do it too. I have so many more resources. I can, you know what I mean? So it's written in a way where you say, oh my God, I'm inspired by this book, and I can go out and do something great as well. So, yeah.
It's, and again, I rarely do plugs on this show, but I thought that this one was one that, especially now, like, we need to know and understand the history. We need to know and understand what erasure looks like in real time. Because again, like I said, me seeing this Instagram post of this place that I literally pass almost every time I leave my house, and to know the history that was there and the celebrities that stayed there and the restaurants that were in the area. And I'm like, this is crazy, because right now it's a Lowe's parking lot and a Goodwill. Right? Like,
you wouldn't, and you know what? You wouldn't know. That's what I'm saying. It's like if nobody says it or puts it in a book or something, you would just never know.
Never know.
So I
think that it's so important that we know and understand and share, but then also, as you said, are inspired by these stories. And this is a side note, but it is related to one. Excuse me. Our first conversation, when you talked about, the book starts in like the 1700s in Barbados.
Right. Yep.
So, I was
That's right.
I was talking to my cousins, because we
Right.
have a whole group chat, and two of my cousins are architects. So I
Okay.
was just like, all right, if anybody knows anything, y'all gonna know something about this.
Right.
And what was interesting was one of my cousins said, um, people know about her, but what they know or what a lot of the documents share is incorrect. In that, the pictures that you see of her is like she's this very robust woman.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, even in us getting these stories and knowing and understanding, we have to take it with a little bit of grain of salt, because
You
the
do.
person that's going to tell the story is going to tell it from their perspective.
Absolutely.
And
Mm-hmm.
it just started this whole conversation.
Yeah.
My
Were
family,
they
they know I
aware?
go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Were they aware of Rachel Pringle-Polgreen?
One of them was.
Okay. Okay.
And so that's the one that said, she was depicted as this very heavy set woman, but she wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one other thing that he said about her. I can't remember, but he knew a little bit of the history, that he was just
Mm-hmm.
like, you don't see these in books.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to figure out is, how can we find out more about her
Mm-hmm.
in that story? Because even her last name, he said something about her last name wasn't really her last name or something
Right.
like
It
that.
was right. She
Yeah.
took on that name. Yeah. Her story is very, very, very interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, that because I actually the picture I have of her in the book is actually from a painting, and they did paint her as a heavy set woman, but that's the only thing you have out there that I've seen. And basically, when I was researching these hoteliers and so forth, you'll have situations where you're looking at 5, 6 different sources telling a different way. And so that the challenging part was looking at it and say, well, what is really factual and what is kind of, so it took some bit of course, prayer and science to figure out and
absolutely
trying to be accurate as possible. I wanted to be as factual as possible, but people create their own narratives about things. So you just have to be careful. So I tried to do the best that I could,
Yeah. Well, I just love the fact that it started in Barbados. So
right. Yeah.
Gotta tell everybody.
Sure does. That is the first story in this book. Barbados.